Welcome back to Trending in Education. And again, Happy New Year. Thanks for coming back and checking out the podcast. Dan Strafford, Mike Palmer, Brandon Jones along with you. And as you heard on our January 1st release, our year in review with our guests, you heard that Mike Palmer is a new father. And we figure we'd take some time here with all three of us discussing how we go about learning to be a parent and what programs are out there in the world and how we do it societally. But first and foremost, I always like to welcome in Brandon and Mike. Brandon, how are you doing? How was your New Year's? How was the holidays? What's new in your world?
My world is less new than Mike's world, so I'm going to get to him quickly, but I'll just say good time away from work. Excited every time the calendar turns. It's just one day later, but seems the symbolism of a new year is exciting. So I am filled with optimism about the year ahead, and excited to be doing more of these with you guys.
And Mike, we spoke on that January 1st release about the early days of welcoming your son home. A quick update. How are things going? What's new and exciting with MJ there in your world?
Yeah, the last few days have been amazing. So we talked, I think I was 8 days in, and now I'm maybe like 10 or 11 days in. And it's somewhat similar, but it is amazing how much kids change day to day. And we did our second pediatrician visit. He's gaining his weight. I've never been so focused on anyone's bowel movements, even more so than my own now. I'm really getting into what he's got going on, not to mention the wet diapers. So it's crazy though, because you wind up rooting for poop and pee-pees. It is what I never. No one tells you that. No one tells you this is what's going to happen, and you're going to be, you're going to actually be excited to change diapers. Because you're actually doing something of value. The rest of the time, you're kind of sitting around like trying to grab his fingers. Hey, how you doing, kiddo? But you want to be able to do something of value. So you're like, please give me a wet diaper. Please give me something to provide value through. But no, it's been amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm just struck by how much there really is no owner's manual. There's so a couple of friends gave me there's copies of owner's manuals that you can read through that are kind of clever, fun parenting guides, but just walk out
it's not your make or model. That's the problem, is you get these books and you read about them and they're close, but they're not quite. It's kind of like getting the Santa Fe when you have an Elantra. But I think it struck me there, Mike, of adding value and the idea of what to do in these early days. Brandon, you're a few years removed from this now, trying to impart wisdom. We think back. I've forgotten a lot of it. I forget a lot of those day-to-days, the late nights, the early mornings, which I still have today, but specifically with a newborn. Do you remember specifically having same feelings of, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, for sure. So a couple of quick thoughts, and Mike, I'll be interested to hear if you had any similar experiences. But there actually was an owner's manual, like a pamphlet, or I feel like pamphlet implies like a trifold. There was like a stapled together several sheet booklet that we didn't get until we checked out of postpartum. Like the nurse who was our attending just forgot, and so I was like, I'm not how about the swaddling? How about the when do we wash this baby? And and I was asking, and then on the last day we were there for a couple days in postpartum, and they were like, "Wait, you didn't get this little 3-page?" Admittedly, it was pretty flimsy. That has not served all of my parenting needs, but even that we didn't get, and it was so interesting that how human the whole experience is, right? Because we had a human who obviously there plenty of humans who helped us bring this baby into the world. And then one of the humans just forgot to give us this thing that had some important early information. So that was one of the things. One of the other thoughts, maybe two other quick ones, and then I'll get back to you, Mike. But one was you have to watch, and I don't know if this was true for you too, but you have to watch the "Don't Shake Your Baby" video.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the one piece of actual, sort of multimedia, video delivery of that content was specifically on Don't Shake the Baby. So check. And then we did, to Dan, to your point of forgetting things. So we did in the early days, like infant CPR class, which, I thankfully didn't need, but man, I would have been ill-equipped to do it if I hadn't taken that class. But I have absolutely forgotten what I learned at that time. Now, I don't have an infant anymore, so it's less relevant for my child. But if I were around an infant who needed CPR, like knock on wood, hope that I never will be. But I don't believe that even having taken that class, I would be well equipped to do that. So it's like a little hodgepodge of things that you either do or don't get in the moment. And then certainly retention as those things become less relevant is, at least in my experience, is pretty mediocre.
Well, it's the idea of spaced repetition, right? You don't have to do it over and over again. You're slowly going to leak out of your brain. But I think also, and Mike, you can attest to this near term, your brain's going a mile a minute. You're thinking of all the variety of things that you need to accomplish. Mike, specifically for you, you were thinking, I need to get home and set up a crib. I need to do things. And I remember thinking when my first daughter was born of, well, what now? How do I do this? And so when someone's talking to you, we talk all the time about, being focused and sort of shutting out the norms of the world and being able to focus on what you're learning. This time, your stress level is through the roof. You're worried about so many different things. And this knowledge, I would say I probably retained 25, 30% of what I was told during those few days. And now, even as you say, Brandon, I forget even more. Mike, do you feel as though, people could have been talking to you, but maybe it wasn't sticking as well as if you had dedicated, focus and maybe not the anxiety and pressures you were feeling at the time?
Yeah. Getting back to Brandon's first point about the classes we needed to take in the prep and what they gave us, like before you give birth, you're supposed to take a parenting class. Since Matthew came early, our parenting class was scheduled on Saturday, December 22nd, when we were actually inducing labor. So we wound up having the baby without the parenting class. But the whole time going in, we were like, well, once we have the parenting class, we're going to have it all squared away. We're going to have it all figured out. Everything's going to be fine. And we wound up reminding everyone who was coming in, like with the baby or whatever. It's like, just as a reminder, we haven't had our parenting class yet. So like, it's just both educators. And then to your point, Dan, like I've heard, the working memory is 7 plus or minus 2. So you have like between 5 and 9 slots of working memory at any given point in time. And like, I think typically I've had a relatively simple life. So like I've been using maybe 3 or 4 slots at a time. I feel like the other 5 or 6 are occupied by parenting thoughts, where like you're always trying to figure out what should I be doing right now? And is this the most productive thing that I could be doing? But then if you start, this was happening, right around Christmas Eve or so, when I was trying to get the home straightened out and also get back to the hospital to be with the wife and all that, was like decision-making, thinking in bets, like, should I do this or should I do that? And then what I would freak out about is like, I'm thinking about these things and I'm not doing either. Like, just make a move, just do something productive. It's remarkable. And it is weird how different, I don't think it's quite hormonal. Maybe it's a little bit hormonal, but it's almost like your whole mindset changes. So like, I used to be like, Robin used to tell me like, oh, hey, can you, I'm kind of thirsty. Can I get a drink of water? And I'm like, yeah, sure. The refrigerator's over there, and now it's like, she says like, oh, I need a drink of water, or, oh, I think the baby's, I'm like, I just jump out. I'm like moving with strength I didn't realize I had. I used to talk about how like, I would joke as I'm getting on in years that I have trouble just standing up from the couch without pushing. And like, that was literally true. But now I'm just like, boom, like I don't even, with the baby in my arms, I'm granted he's pushing 7 pounds, 7.5 pounds. So like, it's not a big weightlifting burden for me, but it is interesting how you actually have more reserves that you don't really know about until you have to tap into them. And then the don't shake the baby, last thing, the don't shake the baby. I gotta say, and I mean, maybe it's just because I'm an e-learning new media guy, the e-learning stuff at the hospital, the videos were actually pretty good. And I've learned more about breasts and breastfeeding than I ever thought. There's a whole world there that I did not understand either. And yeah, just like it is a real it's a nonstop learning marathon is what it seems like. Although now that we're at about 8 or 9 days, I think we're starting to settle into more of a natural flow.
Did you have videos that were other don't shake the baby videos? Was it, because for us it was just one. We had one video. We were not getting the print material we did not get.
Right.
And the only thing we got was this, like it passing in and out of like fitful sleep for both of us. Like, and then someone comes in and says, you have to watch this, or we don't get to, like, you can't take the baby home if you don't watch this video, which I think is the law. So we had one experience. Were there other videos, or were there other other e-learning experiences?
There were many. Yes.
Wow.
There were probably about 10 or 12. Cause like I couldn't sleep that first night. We had, we're in the private room. So I'm in there with her, and Robin's asleep over there. The baby's doing his thing, sleeping. That's what they do a lot. And, I can't sleep. So I just started watching videos, and like, they were actually good. A lot of them were done by like pediatricians, and, they were somewhat empathetic, I guess. Like the thing that's hard, I think, when you have a kid is how you always feel like you're falling behind, and you feel like you're not as caught up as you need to be. And like
that doesn't change. That doesn't change.
I'm sure, but it's like which milestones are we hitting, and like, do we really know how to do this? Not to mention there's lactation consultants coming in, and there's like there's classes, breastfeeding classes to go to, and like it's just, it is. I was really struck by how much of it is about teaching and learning, but also it's about like getting you out of the hospital too. So like, you can't be like, well, we're really getting a lot out of these e-learning videos, and we're planning on staying the rest of the week. So I hope you guys don't mind. There also is a little bit of like, all right, we're set up to keep, it's a volume play here. We need the rooms. So let's get moving.
You don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. The big thing for me, it sounds like, Mike, you had sort of available videos, and Brandon, yours was a prerequisite to leave. Like you needed to watch that video before you were allowed to leave, and Mike had the opportunity to watch more. And that is an intriguing topic just from an education and learning perspective, Mike, of what's available to new parents, right? So throughout the country, throughout the world, obviously different socioeconomic standings, different technologies. What is available to new parents, and what is considered scientific and medical, and what's considered maybe more natural or more societal or more cultural in teaching parents? It seems as though you had a lot at your fingertips, and obviously being in New York, you'll continue to have a lot. Do you see a viewpoint there? Do you have a view on what's available to parents and what should be made available to parents maybe before a baby is born?
Yeah. Shifting gears a little bit, I did watch Bandersnatch on Netflix, which is the new interactive video.
Don't spoil it. I've got it queued up.
Oh yeah. It's I won't even spoil that. But it is interactive. And one thing that I didn't get, and it's also like simulations, so like you're given a scenario, and then you're asked to react and steer in one direction or another. And I do think that's a really interesting learning context, so that even prior to having the baby, when you're starting to lose your mind, and in some ways we were lucky to deliver at 37 weeks, because I think the last 3 weeks we would have been really losing our minds, and Robin would have been getting bigger and bigger. So I think it worked out okay. But like, just to have something valuable to start thinking about, what's it going to be like when I'm a parent? What kind of decisions do I need to make? And then to play forward a little bit. Well, if you make this decision, this is what happens. If you make this other decision, this is what happens. You know, not to get too dark about it, but like the don't shake the baby, like if that's just something you do and then you see the negative implications, like I think it might actually, you know, burn into your brain a little bit more, because it's like, I took this action as opposed to I was just dozing off, you know, barely conscious while the video is playing. Instead, I'm actually asked to do something to sort of play forward how I might parent. I think that would be really useful, I think. And then I imagine that would, if I could have a subscription to something like that, that would be developmentally appropriate, so that, you know, I'm like maybe, you know, 2 to 6 weeks ahead in the types of decisions that I'm going to need to be making like a month or so from now. I would love that, you know, and we did, you know, I know we're past the gift giving season, but we did subscribe to a subscription service called Love Every Baby, which gives you developmentally appropriate learning games and stuff to do with your kid, which is another reason why I really am thinking about having a kid in the golden age of subscriptions is also really interesting, where like what kind of lifetime service or 2 to 3 year subscription just to bridge through the early days of Matthew's life. That stuff really did strike me. And then some of that, you know, like I shared a couple things about parenting education as well. Some of those things should probably just be available to all parents. And then you still have the digital readiness problem. Like, you know, are people gonna find it? Do they know that those resources are available to them? But yeah, I mean, I do think there's a real need that's not necessarily as filled as it could be, you know, around some of these learning assets.
Yeah, I think, and Brandon, wondering your thoughts here, maybe on your experience, but there is a definite cultural and societal way of parenting. And I think that over time, we've seen that it's been very passed down from generation to generation. How you raise a child, how you rear a child has been, you know, very, I think, private, and has not been something that you necessarily go to other people to seek out information. I do think today, Brandon, and your thoughts, with the proliferation of information on the internet, people have more access and maybe more openness to talking to experts or listening to experts on the parenting. Do you see it that way, that the parenting maybe is coming out of that private sort of, this is how we do it in our family tree, or do you still see that as a future aspect of how people learn to and become parents in the future?
Yeah, and that wasn't my experience. It was sort of still generational, handed down sort of mythology. And, you know, I know that not everyone is lucky enough to have one or both newly minted grandparents, grandmothers especially. But for those who are, it's lucky, I guess. But it's also it's interesting. That was one of the things that struck me is how convinced people are that the sort of prevailing science of their day is the one that still prevails. And, you know, like my mother hadn't had a baby in 35 years when I had a baby. And so, you know, it's her knowledge is a little dated, and yet she believed absolutely. And things like, don't let your baby sleep anywhere but on its back. That was not, when I was a kid, that was not the prevailing thinking. Or, you know, don't give your baby both Tylenol and Advil, like the baby Tylenol and Advil. You can only give them one. That's also today not the current thinking, as at least has been prescribed by our doctors. So, you know, I think that's one of the things that I like, Mike, what you said about simulation. Like if there were more simulation for new parents, I think that would be really good. Another thing that I think is not well addressed is just how hard certain aspects are going to be. There's like, you know, there's a postpartum depression piece that I think is very real for a lot of people, both women and men. Yeah. That's a little taboo. I think that to talk about and shouldn't be. I think you know, how to manage your family who has opinions on how much time they should spend with the baby, what you should be doing with the baby. Some of those, again, as I just said, are literally decades dated. I think sort of by definition, most new grandparents haven't had babies in a while. I think there's not a lot of education around that either. And so I think if I were, putting together a sort of a curriculum for new parents, I would include some of that also, in addition to some of the more sort of new form ways like simulation.
It's also intriguing to me, Mike, that if you think back to the Wendy Zuckerman episode at NAB, she talked to that Science Versus had the attachment parenting episode, right? And what happens a lot in these sort of cultural / scientific middle ground is someone who is not an expert can say they are an expert and put a book out, and people will read it and share it because it maybe helps them with their biases, or it helps them think a specific way, and then it becomes a fad. It becomes something that becomes a way of doing things. It feels like this genre, parenting, has a lot of those potential pitfalls where a book could be written, an e-learning course could be made, YouTube videos could be posted on just someone's opinion. And being a learning podcast and being, tied, we like to think of data. We like to think of the science of it all. That scares me a little. And I've seen it. Like, I've seen books, and I've seen plenty of posts from parents on, Baby Center or wherever you go. Do you see that as something that can be, over the years fixed, or is that just simple, hey, we can share information, parenting, everybody has a parent. Everybody has that, that the information is going to get out one way or another.
Yeah, the way I see it is like parents are extremely vulnerable. I know I am right now, and people present you with some confidence, a way to be, a way to act, a thing to do. You're probably, depending on how much prep you have in that particular area, you're probably going to want to rely on what people are telling you. And I think that allows for some folks to take advantage of this. So like, it's another reason why I think more familiarity sooner, because I do feel like, the 9 months is actually a relatively long time, but you don't really know what to do that would be productive. So like, it does feel like if there were a better way to take advantage of that time to do a little more real talk to soon-to-be parents, including, how to tell the con games from the science, and when to be careful with your spending habits. I think I might have a onesie problem, by the way, like especially with Amazon, and like they're really, really friggin' cute, and like you order them and they're there the next day, like. It's have
you gotten any from Matthew, or just is this just for you?
Funny story. So we were trying to get Robin comfortable clothes because like she had just come home and like didn't really have stuff to help because we are nursing, so like I wanted to get more front opening clothes. So I stopped into like the discount whatever clothing shop on Fifth Avenue here in Brooklyn, and couldn't find some, and then I finally found one. I'm like, okay, nice jersey, comfortable material, front opening. I bought it for her. I didn't look at the bottom. I bought my wife a onesie. It's like a nurse. I bought her a nursing onesie without even realizing it. So I don't know, but they're shorts. They're not like the footy style onesie, because and then but aren't rompers in, or like aren't they like yes. bros
if you want to look
onesies.
it up, if you want to look it up, the wife after the third kid bought a momper. So look it up. Fine, it's out there. She loves it. She loved it. So had pockets. She was very into it. So
momper.
That is maybe on that Amazon search list later on. Listen, this is going to be a work in progress. It still is for me. I know Brandon would say the same. Mike will share his thoughts as we move forward. I want to hear from all of you, on whether as a kid, remembering your parents and what they taught you, or the other way around, about what you have learned about being a parent and how you learned before. Mike, any final thoughts before we close out this episode?
No, I mean, I'm going to try to stay connected to my lifelong learner angle on the show, because like I used to be all like, okay, now it's dad time. Guys are talking about being a dad. I'm gonna hang out and wait until I can then represent as someone who just wants to learn through my whole lifetime. So that's still in me, although I think it's going to be hard to keep it top of mind. So we may need to occasionally get a non-parent's voice on the show. Otherwise, we're all going to be talking about our kids all the time. But it's also fun. So yeah, looking forward to I'm really happy we're doing this, by the way, too, because otherwise it's just it's diapers and naps all day and Amazon all day every day. So this is a nice welcome break in my day.
And Brandon, thoughts on maybe a trending in education onesie for Dear Matthew? What do you think?
Like it. I mean, the merch. We got to get the merch store. It's 2019 hashtag the New Year's resolution. But yeah, congrats, Mike, and good luck. And keep learning and keep that baby learning too.
We will be back with more next week right here on Trending in Education. Don't forget to find us on Twitter at Trending in Ed. Same on Facebook, trendingineducation.com. Share us with a friend. Head on over to iTunes, subscribe, then share it. Send that link on to someone else, an educator, a administrator in your life you think would enjoy the conversation. With that said, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode of Trending in Education.